Good
All right,
morning.
let's go. So first, I just want to say thank you, everyone, and thank you, Elaine, for joining us. You know, I think coming from Razorfish, which is a part of Publicis, maybe some of you saw, we released last week a little bit of the AI BS bot, because there's so much fluff out there, right? We believe in the super automation and then the power of AI, but there's been a lot of fluff. And I think one of the things that was really inspiring about our conversations was Reckitt's authentic and progressive journey with artificial intelligence over the past year. And I'm just curious, Elaine, if you could talk a little bit around the systematic approach that you all have taken to really have meaningful progress and leveraging of the technology.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for having me here today. And can I say as well, before I start off, thank you to Brand Innovators for indulging my request to actually have the chairs changed. Because as I said, I don't know about some of you, but those chairs were made for very tall people who wear pants. And I suffered in silence for many years, and I decided I will suffer no more. And I have now decided to ask for this, and when you ask, you get. So thank you, thank you. So yes, coming back to the topic at hand and what we're doing in Reckitt around the topic of Gen AI. You know, it's been a remarkable journey. I mean, I don't think I need to speak to anyone about how quickly this technology is evolving. It's just evolving every day. But I've also been really quite amazed at how quickly within Reckitt we've been able to, I guess, ride that wave to go from pilot to selling it in to actually now scaling it across the organization in probably about 6 months. As the way we are, we took it in a rather systematic approach. We started within marketing in partnership with IT, but we first started looking at, you know, where can Gen AI actually bring some kind of differentiation or competitive advantage to the organization? Because we're a non-tech company, just in case. So Reckitt, we make products like Lysol, Dettol, you know, Nurofen, OTC products, infant nutrition products. So it's a kind of classical CPG company, not a tech company. And we're like, where do we start? And so we started looking into where Gen AI can make a material difference. And at least in our simple way, kind of bucketed it in 3 areas. We said, there could be something around productivity, you know, kind of helping marketers and all of us kind of do our day-to-day tasks more easily, things that are like having an AI co-pilot or an assistant, right? The second area we looked at was what we call domain reinvention. So it's marketing capabilities and tasks we're doing today that can somehow be augmented using Gen AI. And then the third one is literally like new business models, which we see some companies doing. I think Raj gave some amazing examples before of how you can actually use data, you know, lay over the Gen AI and almost create new business opportunities. And through going through the systematic approach, we then laid it over what were some of the work streams within Reckitt, in innovation, in creativity, in media, just to name a few, where we felt we already had some form of momentum. And therefore, we decided to pick a domain reinvention to how we can actually look into these areas, look at what we're doing now, and how Gen AI can actually help augment the capabilities in those areas.
That's great. So when you think about that domain reinvention, and you all, Reckitt, basically selected marketing as the area to start in, how did you get to a conclusion that marketing was where you wanted to begin?
Yeah, well, right from the start, it was actually a conversation that was had at the top, right? And I think, as I mentioned, we started with where can we have competitive advantage? And quite early on, we realized that the technology, while incredible, wouldn't really be differentiating, because the whole point of it being open is everybody has it. Obviously, there's a lot of intelligence on how you piece it together and how you would use it, right? So we started thinking, where is the differentiation going to come from? And we landed on the fact that actually the proprietary data sets that we've been sort of building within Reckitt, particularly in the area of consumer insights, which is the area that I run on insights and analytics, could actually serve to be a huge differentiator, because we talked a little bit about hallucinating and so on. But when it's your proprietary data sets, we've had years and years of curating it, understanding it, validating it, you know, to see whether it actually makes sense. And we also knew that a lot of these proprietary data sets we have today, we're already using for what we call traditional AI, and they were set up for machine learning algorithms already. So we kind of instinctively felt and had a hunch that it would work with Gen AI, right? So the proprietary data sets was one sort of area that we felt would make a difference. And therefore, we embarked on a journey to look into 3 areas. So, for example, the work stream that I lead is essentially around idea creation, because GenAI, I mean, it is basically it's a creation tool, right? And how can we actually harness the power of detecting patterns in consumer behavior and insights from these huge data sets, so that marketers and actually R&D can use that tool, the idea creation tool, to create innovation ideas. Create innovation ideas that in a shorter and more efficient way, but more importantly, better quality ideas than what they could before. Ideas that hopefully will be more foresighted, would be more future forward. We created another tool which was around media reporting. That was kind of there's a lot of kind of grunt work in pulling together different types of data as well, you know, in terms of helping our media people make recommendations. So that was the second one. And then the third was in the area actually of creative and content creation. And we decided to start actually at the end of the value chain instead, you know, the area where I think we felt we could get, it was like low-hanging fruit, but also less risk, right? So the area around asset creation, for example, around what we call localization and adaptation. So yeah, so looking at all of this, we realized that marketing would be a very compelling area to start. And I think we've shown that because we've also managed to move at speed in the organization.
Excellent. And I think you talk about like, creation and differentiation, and I think for us, we fundamentally believe that the people and the humans are a part of that differentiation, and that ultimately AI is about enabling them. And you talk about AI-empowered humans. I'd be curious to understand what that means for you in a creativity-oriented space.
Yeah, everybody talks about AI, but actually the magic is the human in the loop. And we've seen that through all our pilots, and we actually have measurement and metrics that prove that, right? So, you know, of course, as I said, I mean, yes, we start with our proprietary data sets. If you think about it, the data sets are about people as well. It's about humans. I mean, we have, 500 million consumer data points across 17 markets, 12 categories, about everything about what drives consumer demand in a category. We have hundreds of thousands of reports collated over the last few years, you know, around all the research and knowledge that we have within Reckitt, right? It's our own form of tacit knowledge that we actually use to train the models. At the same time, we want to future-proof it by this continuous listening to real-time listening of data, things like search, social, ratings, and reviews to try to understand trends and foresights. And that all comes together to fuel the Gen AI tool that we've created. So that's the kind of AI part. But the thing is that this empowers the human being. We then put these tools into the hands of our marketers, R&D people, media team, and actually creative partners as well. We've brought our creative agencies and partners along with us on this journey. And we have seen, actually, we set very clear metrics at the beginning, and I think, you know, we'll talk more about that as well, that this is not just about efficiency. At the end of the day, the whole idea is we want the AI to help us become like better versions of ourselves, to actually help us, to help human beings become more empowered, to take away the grunt work, to let us do the things that we really enjoy doing. You know, so we set clear metrics as well around that, and we measured that. And we saw in a couple of situations, I mean, the innovation tool, for example, it is enabling a marketer to actually come up with an idea, develop a concept in an hour. You know, things that used to take weeks is taking days. Things that used to take days is like taking hours. And we see like a 65% efficiency, for example, which then frees them up time to do other creative kind of work as well. On the creative side, we actually saw as well a specific example where the AI had come up with something around voice, for example, but the tonality wasn't really right, so it wasn't scoring that well. We required the creative human in the loop to come in to understand tonality and emotion and accent, and after that human was involved, immediately the scores went up. So, you know, we don't see the AI as a silver bullet. It's an enabler to empower, as I said, the humans. And, you know, I cannot just say enough how critical the human in the loop is, and we've seen that ourselves.
Yeah. So the effectiveness, the empowerment, this all sounds really good. But there's a lot of complex platforms. There's your proprietary data that sits behind it. And if we're honest for a moment, IT is there to manage the risk of all of that getting exposed or getting compromised. And so when you talk about these platforms and you talk about partners, your internal partners with information technology are critical to being able to deploy and scale. Can you talk about how you at Reckitt partner with your IT counterparts to actually bring this technology into the organization and expose your data to it?
Absolutely. I mean, right from the get-go, this was a kind of a labor of love and passion of our chief IT&D officer and my manager, who's the chief marketing officer, right? He's the chief marketing, sustainability, and external affairs officer. But basically, it was a partnership. Within the CMO leadership team, we have our IT partner who sits there with us, and we've been working together for years. We've been working together on, on anything data-driven or tech, like, for example, the digital transformation. So we'd already had experience working together on tech-type work streams, right, where we were already leveraging AI and machine learning. So therefore, I would say, in a way, it was a sort of a transition, right? This is another work stream. I think the next thing I believe that is critical is also the kind of tech partner. I mean, I think we're very fortunate. When I would describe my IT partner, it says something. He's actually here with us, by the way, in Cannes as well. Is that he's an incredible technical expert, but who really understands the business. And we always start with the business. And I think he would probably say that, hopefully, that his peer group are actually business domain experts, whether insights and analytics, marketing capabilities, or media, who are data-driven and at least minimally tech-savvy enough to have a conversation. And what we do, and as we went on this journey, is we always started first with the business question, the business case. So we started off with, what is it that we're trying to solve here in this organization, right? And then we started thinking, what are the metrics and the deliverables, and how do we set that up with the senior business owners within the organization? Then after that, we started thinking about, okay, how do we do this together? How do we embed it in the organization? Because the other thing I didn't kind of mention was, I said at the beginning that tech itself would not really be the differentiator, right? It's incredible, but I read a paper somewhere that it's like, I think its technology would be like 10%, the data would be like 20%, but 70% actually comes from the change management of embedding it in an organization's business operating model. So therefore, after we kind of set out the business use case, the metrics and the deliverables, we think about exactly how we're going to embed it within the business operating system of the organization, right? And after we do all of that, then IT can come back with their tech solution, of what's going to deliver on that.
So first of all, I hope all of the clients that we have such great partnerships with their tech organization. That would be great. But you think about that alignment, right? You talked about metrics, and you talked about how you define the business case. A big part of an organization moving forward as an enterprise is alignment around what we're trying to achieve. And through our discussions, we talked about efficiencies. And I feel like everyone is out there talking today around efficiencies that can be gained through AI. But we also talked about effectiveness. And I'm curious how Reckitt has defined measurement for effectiveness, because I do think that philosophically, we need to be approaching AI not just from an efficiency perspective, and if we're thinking about the AI-empowered human, it's about how it makes us better. And that, to me, speaks to effectiveness. And how have you all defined measurement for that effectiveness?
Yeah. So, right from the beginning, like you said, we decided it would be efficiency and effectiveness. What's very interesting was, so the efficiency is kind of it's a given. Okay, it's a given. We've all used this ourselves. We know it's faster, all right? It was actually the business owners, it was some of our colleagues who were from within the business who actually challenged and said, but we shouldn't just go for efficiency. We need to go for better quality ideas, better quality creatives, better quality people that somehow we're upskilling ourselves, right? And that was right at the start. So therefore, yes, we set up the efficiency metrics, and we know, for example, as I said, on the work stream I'm working on, we're actually more efficient by about 65%. But the effectiveness score, so on innovation, we said that the AI-powered human, so the ideas coming from the AI-powered human, at least for the pilot, had to be at least as good as human alone, at least as good, because then, okay, you've got the efficiency, but you have the quality as well. And this was in our first MVP, sort of 2 months after we started. But longer term, we actually want the AI-powered human to exceed, to be better, to come up with better quality and more effective ideas than the human alone. Won't even talk about the AI alone, because I can tell at the beginning it came out with some really weird stuff, which is why I said the human is so important in this. So in our case, we measure through certain types of consumer testing or getting feedback from consumers in different ways, whether through research or A/B testing, etc. So we set very clear metrics around that, and the output from the pilots had to actually go through it. And we saw, at least at the first go, so this is just 2 months in, and these tools are so intelligent, they evolve every day. Just 2 months in, the AI-powered human was already able to equalize, right? Equalize, and in some cases exceed the human alone, let's say from results that we looked at from the last 2 years. So, it gave us confidence. It gave us some, cautious optimism and confidence that this was the right way to go. But we continue to hold ourselves to that high bar. And we learn along the way. For example, we learn so much from training the model around what works, what doesn't work. In some cases, we're actually learning about when maybe the human should not intervene too much. There's two sides of it. So I'm like, how can we actually try to direct the human to intervene in the right places, right? Because sometimes we can become maybe too creative. And in some, like, for example, marketers are putting in too many messages, too many benefits in an idea. Probably should have stopped a couple before, right? And trying to give that advice and say, but direct your energy in this area because this is where it's needed. So yeah, so efficiency and effectiveness, we're very clear about that.
I love it. And I think that looking at the past 12 months, it's incredibly inspiring to see what Reckitt has done. I'm proud from a Razorfish and a Publicis point of view. We are on our own cusp of releasing a series of AI tools, and we're just incredibly motivated for what the future has to come. And I'm curious for any kind of final thoughts before we open up to questions on how you think about the journey Reckitt has been on, but also the journey to come as you think about like the next 12 months and how rapidly the space is evolving.
So firstly, congrats to you and Razorfish as well for, doing a great job. And I think we were talking about it, you're saying you also look at efficiency, but also effectiveness, right, in terms of what you're actually creating, which is great. Our journey continues. Actually, I feel like it kind of never stops. It seems to be accelerating every day. We're now currently in the process of scaling the tools that we created in kind of phase 1 of the pilot across categories and markets. So we're taking it out there and we're starting to scale very quickly what we know already works. Yeah, so that's kind of, I guess, the first thing that we're doing. We're also learning a lot around and constantly training this model, fueling it with more data sources. And that's kind of, I guess, the journey that we'll be going on within Reckitt. For me personally, as well, I'm really passionate and excited about this because, my purpose, is to actually have the consumer at the heart of everything that we do in an organization. I've been in this industry now for coming out to like 26 years now. Gosh, time goes quickly, and that's always been my dream to do that, to actually and the AI is enabling that. It's allowing us to do that with every marketer first going into an insights generation tool and tapping into every single piece of kind of data and piece of knowledge within the organization in order to be kind of truly consumer centric. It's like I'm living the dream here. And then secondly, on a more personal note, actually, apart from driving business, which I'm very passionate about, and driving consumer-centric business, I think the AI is actually giving us an opportunity as well to create kind of almost a more inclusive and sustainable world. I mean, so that's my also personal purpose, where I would like to leave behind a more inclusive, equitable, and sustainable world for the generations that follow. And actually, by ensuring that you create and build these models with intentionality, so we fuel the models as well with D&I data, with data around perhaps underserved communities or audiences that sometimes may not intentionally be passed over, but people forget, on data on sustainability. It's like we're able to, almost build that in, and hopefully the AI, through reading the patterns, will also create inclusive and sustainable ideas going forward. So, I'm kind of, as I say, kind of living the dream right now. I say in LinkedIn that I'm doing my dream job. It's a job, was my first sort of client job in-house 23 years ago. And as I tell the senior leadership team, I hope that going forward, through the empowerment and enablement of Gen AI, I'll finally kind of get what I always wanted to do, which is that every single winning idea from this organization will always have people at the heart of everything we do and be truly consumer-centric. Thank you.
I love it. I think you teed up next year's conversation for us to talk about how you have been able to really build the inclusivity and the DE&I into your language models and your AI empowerment.
Yeah, it'll be amazing. We're still on the start of the journey, but yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Love it. Want to open up just for any questions?
Because, you know, I'm interested, people. When you look at workflow and process now, how do you think about the innovation on the workflow and process side as opposed to the productivity side for people?
Yeah. So when we look at workflow, so let's talk about innovation, yeah, because that's and within a consumer goods company, an innovation workflow and process is quite lengthy. It can be like 12 to 18 months. So we're really looking along the whole entire. At the moment, we've started with the upstream piece, right? Insights and idea generation, which is also, it's quite interesting with comms. It's always like you start communication, you start at the end, which is low-hanging fruit. But with innovation, it was this one. Yeah, where we started. We're looking at that. At the same time, then we're looking at, we have other work streams that are looking at partnering R&D around prototyping, product development, supply chain as well in terms of the delivery. So we're looking at different pieces, but what I'd say is, and this is the same approach I take for anything, when you look at something that's really big, and if you want to boil the ocean and do everything at the same time, sometimes you do nothing, right? So I think we've kind of chunked it up, started by saying, where do we start first? And then you kind of sometimes have a couple of parallel work streams going on at the same time, but the destination eventually is the entire, as I said, workflow reinvention.
I have one. Thank you, Elaine, for the talk and sharing with us. I was wondering if you guys have started to think about things that can happen outbound, meaning not marketing to the platforms, but in the platforms, your products are out there, people are searching for it, and these models will be pervasive in the experiences. Have you thought about how the company will adapt to that when you start having, for example, reviews being generated by non-humans and those sort of things?
Yeah. I will say that at the moment we haven't looked at that yet. I heard very interesting things from Raj early on, and I think being a CPG company, unfortunately, sometimes I get a lot of data envy when I see people with a lot of first-party data, because I don't have a lot of that along the journey. But as we collect it, I think it is important. We are trying to, at least in what we're doing on creative and asset creation, become much more kind of platform-driven, and the AI is allowing us to do that a lot quicker. We're seeing in terms of adaptation, where by creating one asset, whether it's video or whatever, the Gen AI is able to help us immediately create very kind of platform-specific and audience-specific type of assets very quickly. We actually also create quite a lot of our content in-house already, and we have been for a number of years in virtual studios or through our own kind of internal studios. So in a way, I think we're set up. We have the infrastructure in place to go fast when the time comes. We've just chosen to kind of, I guess everybody makes a choice. We've chosen to start with the asset creation, and at some point, we'll probably get to that.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Very
Thank
good.
you, Elaine.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.